the love affair that destroyed the monarchy. This is the royal betrayal. Why did King Charles sacrifice Diana for Camilla? The crown needed a future queen, but Prince Charles only ever wanted one woman, Camilla. The moment Diana Spencer was chosen as the sacrificial lamb, her fate was sealed. Tonight, we expose the chilling evidence of this betrayal, from the humiliation of her engagement to the secrets of her life behind palace walls. We examine the shocking murder of her protector, Barry Mannakee, a clear warning that the monarchy would stop at nothing. But the deepest secret, the reason they couldn't just divorce her, lies in her lineage, the one thing the crown could not control. They painted her as a common girl who won a prince's heart. But I was there. I knew the families. The truth was far more complex. The story you've been told about Diana Spencer is a carefully crafted myth. The common girl who won the heart of a prince. But I was there. I knew the families, and the truth was far more complex. Diana was not a commoner. She was a Spencer. And in the silent ancient halls of British aristocracy, that name carried a weight few could understand. The Spencers were one of the oldest, most powerful families in Britain. Their lineage was woven into the very fabric of the nation. Winston Churchill himself was a close relative, just to give you an idea of the power they wielded. But the Spencers were different. They were known for something the House of Windsor despised: progressive thought. They were among the first to support American independence. They were vocal abolitionists when slavery was still the engine of the empire. These were not just opinions. In those days, they were acts of treason. Can you imagine the courage that required? Diana grew up breathing this air of quiet rebellion. She was raised in a world of immense privilege, yes, but it was a world infused with a deep sense of humanity. Her family mingled with the royals, but they were not like them. Her father, John Spencer, the 8th Earl Spencer, was a figure at court. He knew the game, he knew the rules, and he knew the coldness that resided at the heart of the monarchy. This environment shaped a young woman destined to shake the world. But her home was not a sanctuary. It was a place of deep, hidden pain. I remember the stories that trickled out from the Althorpe estate, the grand cold house where Diana spent her childhood. When she was just 6 years old, her world fractured. The silence in those long corridors became unbearable. Her mother, Frances Roche, did the unthinkable. She left. She walked away from her husband and her children. For a 6-year-old girl, this wasn't a divorce. It was an abandonment. A wound carved so deep it would bleed for the rest of her life. And there was something darker, something Diana only confessed years later, her voice trembling on those secret tapes: the violence. She remembered seeing her father strike her mother. The echoes of those moments never left her. It planted a seed of profound sadness in her heart, the first of many depressions that would haunt her. Is it any wonder she spent her life searching for a love that had been stolen from her so early? For 12 years, she tried to fill that void. She found solace in dance, the discipline of ballet, the rhythm of tap. It was a way to control a world that felt so out of control. She developed a passion for teaching, especially young children. She even worked at a nursery school in London. She wanted to give them the warmth and security she had lost. She was finding her own way, a quiet life, on her own terms. But destiny, or perhaps something far more sinister, had other plans. Because in every story like this, there is a villain. And in this story, the villain was an entire institution, the cold, calculating machine known as the House of Windsor, and at its center was the heir to the throne, Prince Charles. By 1976, Charles was a man under immense pressure. His youth was fading. The crown demanded he find a wife, not just any wife, a future queen, a woman who would produce an heir and a spare. He had enjoyed his freedom, his romances. There had been many women, and in fact he believed he had already found the one, the love of his life. But there was a problem. The crown said no. The woman he loved, the one he truly wanted, was Camilla Rosemary Shand. You must remember that name. It is the key to this entire tragedy. The reason they refused the match seems almost archaic now. But to the monarchy it was everything. Charles and Camilla had been intimate. She was not a virgin, and worse, she was already a married woman. The crown needed a bride who was pure. Or at least, someone who appeared to be. A blank slate upon which they could write their own story. Don't be surprised that they interfered so brutally. This is what I need you to understand. The crown controls everything. Every marriage, every birth, every public appearance. It is a finely tuned machine designed for one purpose and one purpose only: survival. And to ensure that survival, they have done things much, much worse, you will see. And so, with Camilla denied, the hunt for a suitable bride began. This is the precise moment when two paths, destined for collision, began to converge. The moment Diana's life was sealed. In 1977, Charles was dating someone else, someone you might not expect. Lady Sarah Spencer? Yes, Diana's older sister. During that courtship, Charles spent time at the Spencer family home, and there he met a young, shy Diana. She was captivated by him. He was the Prince of Wales. He was charmed by her. She was refined, yet had a flirtatious glimmer in her eye. The relationship with Sarah fizzled out. It was never serious, but a seed had been planted in Charles's mind. Years passed. By 1980, the pressure was at a breaking point. The media was in a frenzy. The royal family was demanding a decision. Charles was running out of time. With Camilla forbidden, his mind returned to that shy girl at Althorpe, Diana Spencer. She was perfect, on paper, from a great aristocratic family, young, beautiful, and presumably untouched. She was the perfect sacrificial lamb. What followed was not a romance. It was a whirlwind of calculation. A courtship so brief it was almost a transaction. They went on just 10 dates. 10. Before he asked her to be his wife. Can you truly know someone after just 10 meetings? On February 24th, 1981, the engagement was announced. The world erupted. I was in London that day. I'd never seen anything like it. The media frenzy was immediate, and it was total. This young woman, Diana, became the most famous person on the planet overnight, and she had a magic no royal had ever possessed. She connected with people. She would hold children, shake hands with ordinary citizens, things the stiff, distant Windsors never did. That was the hook. That was what made everyone fall in love with her. Her simplicity, her kindness. It felt real. But during those months of engagement, Diana made a chilling discovery, a realization that would become a dark prophecy. She was no longer a person. She was prey. From that moment on, the paparazzi would never leave her. They were prophetic words, weren't they? They followed her every move, 24 hours a day. The media dug through her trash. desperate for any scrap of information. Her life was no longer her own. The cage was being built around her, bar by golden bar. And then the day arrived, July 29th, 1981, the date that marked the beginning of the fairy tale, or so the media called it. The wedding of the century, the future King of England and his beautiful blushing bride. We all watched. The world stood still. An estimated 500 million people tuned in. It remains one of the most watched television events in history. A moment no one could forget, and a moment that scarred Diana for life. Years later, on those secret tapes she made for Andrew Morton, she confessed the truth of that day. As she walked down that impossibly long aisle at St. Paul's Cathedral, the weight of the dress, the roar of the crowd, the eyes of the world upon her. She was looking for only one person, one face in that vast sea of guests, Camilla, and she found her. You can see her in the footage, if you know where to look. Dressed in white, a clear signal, a show of power. Diana saw her, and in that instant, her heart froze. She knew the truth of her marriage before it had even begun. But we're not ready to talk about that just yet. Be patient. That day, England celebrated like never before. The streets were flooded with people, waving flags, cheering for the happy couple. The day culminated with that legendary kiss on the Buckingham Palace balcony. A perfect image for a perfect lie. Now, it is time to explain the third piece in this broken puzzle. It's time to talk about Camilla. She was the first choice, the one Charles truly loved, but she had been deemed unworthy. After their union was officially denied by the Queen, Charles did not simply let her go. How could he? He continued to see her, many, many times. It didn't matter that Camilla was married to Andrew Parker Bowles. It didn't matter that Charles was now engaged to Diana. The affair never stopped, not for a single day. And what's so heartbreaking is that Diana suspected it from the very beginning. The clues were there, like shards of glass in her path. Sometimes the four of them would spend time together, Charles and Diana, Camilla and her husband. A twisted, polite charade, and Camilla would give Diana advice. She would tell her what Charles liked, what he didn't, how to please him. Imagine the chilling intimacy of that. The woman sleeping with your fiancé, teaching you how to be his wife. It terrified Diana. That's why she couldn't stop looking for her during the wedding. She was staring her rival, the true queen of her husband's heart, directly in the eye. The realization of the trap she had walked into was devastating. It broke something inside her. Charles, for his part, refused to confront the problem. He would justify his calls, his secret meetings with Camilla. He would claim she was just a great friend, a confidant. Do you believe that? Meanwhile, Diana was crumbling. The immense pressure of the wedding, the horrifying discovery that her husband did not love her. It triggered a grave illness, bulimia, a desperate attempt to control the one thing she could, her own body. The honeymoon was supposed to be a romantic escape. Instead, it was a battleground, filled with arguments and a chilling emotional distance. The fairy tale was already a nightmare. Then, in October of 1981, during their first official trip to Wales, something shifted. Diana gave Charles the news. She was pregnant. An heir was on the way. But this pregnancy brought another shadow into their marriage. It was no longer just Charles, Camilla, and Diana. Now the full weight of the crown descended upon them. Queen Elizabeth II and the senior courtiers. They were becoming concerned. Diana was getting too much attention. All the crowds wanted to see was her. She was overshadowing the legitimate heir, Charles. This was a violation of the unspoken rule: the consort must never outshine the monarch. But for a brief, beautiful moment, after the birth of Prince William, there was peace. A strange calm descended. Charles seemed genuinely captivated by his son. He looked like a proud, attentive father. Perhaps, Diana thought, this could work. Perhaps a child could heal their fractured lives. She was wrong. As the royal tours continued, the old poison returned: jealousy. Charles watched as the crowd surged past him, screaming Diana's name. He became an afterthought in his own life, and pressed by his family, by the constant whispers that he was being weakened. That jealousy slowly curdled into something much darker, a deep burning resentment for his wife. Things remained this way for the next 3 years, a cold war fought behind palace doors, until the arrival of Prince Harry. Diana later recounted that in the months before Harry's birth, Charles was different. He was attentive, kind, more loving than she had ever seen him. She allowed herself to hope again. It was a cruel trick. On September 15th, 1984, the day Harry was born, that hope was shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. Within hours of his son's birth, Charles's mood turned dark. He was visibly annoyed, uncomfortable. When asked if the baby looked like him, his response was cold. Then came the ultimate act of cruelty, when the couple left the hospital and returned to Kensington Palace. Minutes after arriving home with his wife and newborn son, Charles left. He walked out, got in a car, and went to play a polo match with his friends. Can you even fathom that? What kind of father does that? You're asking why. I'll tell you why. It was because baby Harry had red hair, the classic Spencer trait. For Charles, it was another public reminder that Diana's blood, her lineage, was eclipsing his own. And there was more. Diana revealed on the tapes that Charles had desperately wanted a girl. His first words upon seeing his new son were, "Oh God, it's a boy," and then, "and he's even got red hair." This was the final breaking point, the moment Diana knew, with absolute certainty, that Charles would never love her, that her marriage was a complete and utter sham. And in that moment of total devastation, something new was born in her: acceptance, and with it, a steely resolve. From this point forward, she made a decision. If she could not have love within the palace, she would find it outside. She would use the immense power she now wielded, the global spotlight that followed her everywhere, for something good, and she did. Hundreds of visits to hospitals, to nursing homes and orphanages. She poured her energy into charitable causes around the world. She did something no one in the royal family had dared to do. She fought the stigma of AIDS. She had friends in the LGBT community. She knew the truth of the disease, and she wanted the world to know it too. She held the hand of a man dying of AIDS, and in that one gesture, she changed the global conversation. She became a fashion icon, the face of Versace. She was more than a princess. She was a global phenomenon. By this point, she no longer cared what was happening between Charles and Camilla. She was building her own kingdom. But the English crown was furious, absolutely incandescent with rage. How dare this woman, who was not a Windsor by blood, become more important than the heir? They were disgusted that she did not understand her role. She was supposed to look pretty at events. She was supposed to stand silently behind her husband, and she was never, ever supposed to outshine him. But Diana didn't care, and so they began to move against her, to do everything in their power to damage her. Diana felt utterly alone, trapped inside a system that now saw her as an enemy. She had no one to talk to, no one to trust, no one except a man named Barry Mannakee. Barry was the head of her security detail. He had been with her since the engagement. His job was to be by her side at all times. And he was. In him, Diana found something she had never known. A protector. Someone who genuinely cared for her safety and well-being. And as she spent more and more time with him, feeling safe for the first time in years, she let her guard down. He became her first lover, her first escape from the cold prison of her marriage. But the crown has eyes and ears everywhere, they found out. Do you remember what I told you at the beginning of this story? That the crown is capable of anything to survive. Well, this is what they did. On May 15th, 1987, Barry Mannakee suffered a sudden, fatal motorcycle accident. Does that sound familiar to you? Years later, a video surfaced. It is recorded in the 90s. On it, you can hear Diana's voice. She is certain, she says, that the British Secret Service had him killed. It was all found out, and he was chucked out, she says. And then he was killed. When this happened, Diana knew. She realized they were not just trying to discredit her. They were willing to kill, to protect the crown. She knew they were plotting something against her. Something to stain her name, or worse, to do her physical harm. It was then, in the spring of 1991, that she made a move to protect herself. She secretly contacted the journalist Andrew Morton. She decided to tell her own story, to reveal all the secrets of her marriage, the misery, the self-harm. She asked him to write a book, but she made one chilling request. He was never to reveal that she was the source, and he was not to release the secret tapes she made for him. Until something bad happened to her. What does that tell you? She knew they were coming for her. On July 15th, 1992, Andrew announced the book's publication. The news sent a seismic shock wave through the monarchy. They were horrified. They knew this information could permanently damage the public's perception of the future king. The Queen's investigators scrambled, trying to find the leak. Who was the source? Who had betrayed them? As the months passed, they became certain it had to be Diana. There was no other way he could have known such intimate details. Publicly, they defended her, claiming she had nothing to do with it. But privately, the war had reached its peak. In October of 1992, the Crown summoned Charles and Diana. They offered a solution, a way to control the damage, a separation. The media already suspected it. The whole world was talking about it. They thought it was the best thing for their public image. So officially, on December 9th, 1992, the separation was announced. Many believed the story would end there, that the divorce would be the final chapter. They were wrong. The years that followed were Diana's most impactful. Freed from the direct control of the monarchy, she became an even greater force for good. More charities, more humanitarian aid. She joined the Red Cross, and she undertook one of the most important acts of her life. She flew to Angola, to a country ravaged by civil war, and she walked through a live minefield. To show the world the horror of landmines, the image was electrifying. This was not a princess in a palace. This was a warrior for humanity, and she never neglected her most important duty, her sons. She dedicated the rest of her life to teaching them what the Windsors could not: the importance of being close to the people, the power of a good heart, the necessity of being human. You can see her legacy in them today. That kindness in William, that rebellious spirit in Harry. Is it any surprise that Harry eventually abdicated his role in the crown? He understood. He saw the same prison that had trapped his mother. He knew that carrying the legacy of the House of Windsor was not necessary to make a change. During this time, 2 new men entered her life. The first was Dr. Hasnat Khan, a heart surgeon, a relationship she tried desperately to keep secret. And then came Dodi Al-Fayed. These were the 2 men to whom she gave her heart after Charles. With Hasnat, she fell in love with his normality. He was kind, human. He treated her like a person, not an icon. He didn't want the spotlight. Their relationship was passionate, but he couldn't handle the pressure. He just wanted to be a surgeon, to live a normal life. And Diana's life was anything but normal. But she went to great lengths to protect him from the public eye. She knew what the crown was capable of. She didn't want another Barry Mannakee. And then, at the very end of her life, came Dodi Al-Fayed, the son of a billionaire. He gave her the security and care she had been searching for. In him, Diana saw a possible future, a life without constant worry, a life where she could focus on her courses and come home to a loving husband. It was all she had ever asked for. But she made one more fateful decision, one final act of defiance that sealed her fate. In 1995, she agreed to a secret interview with the BBC, the Panorama interview. In it, she would reveal even more damaging information about her life inside the crown. This was the last straw. She spoke on global television about how the monarchy controlled everything from within. She uttered the now famous line, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." The crown realized in that moment that Diana would haunt their public image forever, and they would not allow it. The idea that someone who had been inside their most intimate circle was now exposing their secrets to the world. It was an unforgivable betrayal. In August of 1997, Diana was in France on vacation with her boyfriend, Dodi Al-Fayed. They were staying at the Ritz Hotel in Paris, owned by Dodi's father. They decided to stay one more night to enjoy the city. Dodi's security team recommended they leave through the back of the hotel. There were no paparazzi there, and this is where the official story begins to unravel. This is where it gets strange. First, when they left the hotel, no paparazzi saw them leave. The back entrance was clear, but suddenly, according to the forensic report, 4 high-speed motorcycles appeared out of nowhere. Paparazzi, they said, chasing the car. Then there's the driver, Henry Paul, the head of security at the Ritz. The official story is that he was drunk, 3 times over the legal limit, but his friends and family swear he was not a heavy drinker. He supposedly lost control of the vehicle while being pursued. He hit a car on the right side and then slammed directly into the 13th pillar of the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. The 13th pillar. Does any of this sound right to you? Isn't it strange, the way Diana and her former lover Barry both died? Both in strange high-speed vehicle accidents? Like I told you from the beginning, the Crown, the House of Windsor, will do whatever it takes. They will remove whoever they have to stay alive. The crash was horrific. It caused fatal internal injuries to Diana. Dodi died instantly. Diana was rushed to the hospital, but hours later she too would lose her life. For a moment the world stopped spinning. Every news channel in every corner of the globe carried the same unbelievable headline: Lady Di was dead. Millions of people attended her funeral. Millions more watched from home, all to say one last goodbye to the woman who had changed the world, the woman who, in her own way, brought a little humanity to a society that was destroying itself from within, the woman who gave humility to a crown that never deserved her, because Diana, even without a royal title, achieved more than the entire House of Windsor combined. But her greatest legacy was raising the successors to that crown. You can see it so clearly in both William and Harry, the humanity and the good heart of their mother. Her great legacy is still alive in her two beloved sons, and her story, her truth, is alive now, more than ever, in our hearts. Her voice was silenced once. Don't let them silence it again. Share this story so the world never forgets the real Princess of Hearts.